Welcome back. In this video, we are going to go over some of the more common applications that run on a Linux server. What exactly is a Linux server? A server is typically a powerful computer that serves data from itself to client systems. An example is a web server that sends web pages to a user's application, such as a Firefox web browser on a desktop. Well, how does this work? On the left, we have a Linux server. On the right, we have a Linux desktop. Each system on a network has an IP address. You can think of an IP address as a telephone number for that particular system. Each service or application that runs on a server listens on a particular network port. Using our telephone number analogy, a port can be likened to an extension for a telephone number. In our example, our server has an IP address of 10.10.0.10, and it has a web server that is listening on port 443. Our desktop system on the right has an IP address of 10.10.0.150. The desktop makes a network call to our server asking for a web page. The server, listening on port 443 for any incoming request for a web page, then sees that the desktop at 10.10.0.150 made a request and sends the web page down to the desktop, where it is then rendered in the web browser. Here are some of the more common network ports and their associated server applications. You may not be tested on every single one of these, but it is a very good idea to be familiar with these. Port number 22 is reserved for the OpenSSH server, which is used for encrypted communications and opening up a remote shell between a client and a server. It is often used for securely copying files from a desktop or a client system to a server as well. Port 23 is used for Telnet, which is an unencrypted, much older service that is still used every once in a while just to test to see if a network port is open, but it is not a good idea to use it in a production environment for logging into remote systems. Port 25 is used for the SMTP service, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. You will often find this service associated with the Postfix or SendMail mail transfer agents, which are the applications that are used for sending email from a system out to other mail servers. Port 53 is used for DNS, or the Domain Name Service. DNS is used to change a server's host name, such as www.google.com, to its associated IP address. This way, you wouldn't have to try to memorize every single IP address that Google uses. All you would need to know is just Google's name of google.com. DNS will then translate that name to the appropriate IP address for you. Bind, also known as Named, and Unbound are two popular DNS servers that are used on Linux today. Port 67 uses the BootP protocol, which is often used in a network environment where it will automatically assign an IP address to a client system using the DHCPD service, also known as the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Port 80, used for the HTTP protocol, is often served via the Apache web server or the Nginx web server. HTTP uses unencrypted communications between a client and a server to serve up web pages. Port 443 uses the HTTPS protocol, which is the secure version of HTTP. This is also served via the Apache web server or the Nginx web server. Linux can also provide other network services via these applications here. For file servers, you will often find NFS, or the Network File Server, which is used to serve up file shares between a server and a client system. It is common on many Unix-style operating systems. You can also find Samba or CIFS, the Common Internet File System, which is an open-source implementation of Microsoft's Server Message Block Protocol. This gives the ability for a Linux server to serve up files to Windows clients on the same network. You can also find various database servers in use on Linux servers, such as MySQL or MariaDB, where MySQL, which is now owned by Oracle, is one of the world's most popular open-source database management servers, and MariaDB is a clone of MySQL that is just not owned by Oracle and is still developed within the open-source community today. PostgreSQL is a bit more of an advanced open-source database management system. You will often find either of these database servers as backends for various websites on the internet today. You can also find the CUPS, or the Common Unix Printing System service, on a server, And this is an open source print server, which is primarily developed by Apple. This gives clients on a network the ability to print to a shared network printer using the same server. That covers it for this video, so let's mark this one complete and continue on with the next.